When property prices rise, some of you guys seem to think we're in a real estate bubble. If property prices fall, some of you seem to think we have a real estate crash. The reason is that you only see what is above the water, the clickbait headlines from the mass media, and I don't blame you. Who has time to swim real deep and see what's really going on below the water? Turns out we do. So let's see why property prices and rents here in Germany really exploded in this German real.estate blog. First, we need to understand that the real estate market is not some isolated thing somewhere in a corner of the universe, detached from everything else. Why not? Because people live in properties. If you have a lot of people, you need a lot of properties. If you have no people, you also need no properties. So far so good, right? Now let's see how the German population developed. It looks kind of flat, but that's only because of the scale. There's still people claiming that the German population is shrinking, which they say because since the 1970s more people are dying than babies are being born, but they forget one thing. Migration. Last year, about 1.2 million people moved out of Germany and 2.7 million people moved into Germany, leaving us with a net migration of 1.5 million people, which is 4 to 5 times higher than the net migration in 2021, and the highest recorded net migration ever since they started tracking it in 1950. And that's why the Statistical Office estimates that the German population is right now at an all-time high of 84.3 million people. And all these people need to live somewhere, which brings us to the next level of our iceberg. Because what do you need in bureaucratic, old-school pen and paper Germany before you can even build a property? A building permit. You can see we got a lot done in the 90s and then it crashed down towards the global financial crisis in 2008. Now we slowly recovered over the last 10 years, at least it looks like it on the Statista chart. But this chart reaches back only until 2021, for whichever reason. So here are the most recent numbers to show a sharp decline again. Now we could go into the reasons why the number of building permits is declining. We could shit on German bureaucracy all day long, and I'm actually happy to do so, but the reasons don't really matter here. Only the result matters. And the result is that in a time in which we need properties the most, because population is at an all-time high, building permits are falling by almost 30% compared to 2022. And the fewer building permits we have, the fewer properties are being constructed. Right? Right. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have less living space. Let me clarify. Here's the number of constructions we finished each year. Properties for living purposes in light blue. You can ignore the dark blue columns for now. We can learn two things when comparing the building permits with the actual constructed properties. First, Statista, update your charts. Why do you stop in 2021 when it says at the bottom copyright 2023? And second, the number of properties constructed is about 10% lower than the building permits given every single year since the global financial crisis. So not everyone who has a building permit is constructing a property necessarily. I said earlier that doesn't mean we have less living space, and here's why. The number of properties for living purposes are growing despite us building less properties, because old properties are being renovated as well. That's why the number of total properties keeps growing nicely. At least it looks like it on this chart. Steep curve, straight up. What more could you ask for, right? Well, it's just a matter of perspective and scaling. The population looks kind of flat, but the number of properties keeps going straight up. Supply and demand of the German property market should be amazing. So what's the issue? If you take the deceiving scaling out of it and just put the numbers into perspective, you'll see that the number of properties for living purposes in Germany grew by just 14.7% from the year 2000 to 2021. That is 0.7% year over year only. And the number of flats, which factors out that some properties are small and some properties are huge, that's what she said, grew by 12.2% from 2000 to 2021. Only 0.6% year over year. It's the right trend, which is good, but it's just not enough to keep up with the growing population, especially when you factor in the amount of living space per person that increased pretty big over the last decades. from 2000 to 2021 by 17.8%. So much more than the number of properties or flats being built. And if the population keeps growing and growing, and the square meters per person keep growing and growing, all while building permits decline and the number of properties grows only very little bit, the property prices and rents will only know one way: up. And that's why the house price index from Europace, one of the largest mortgage software providers in Germany, does show a small decline in property prices in early 2022 because of inflation, the war in Ukraine and whatnot. But you can see the recovery already. And after the run we had over the last 10-ish years, I feel a small break and a small decline, just to breathe and take a step back, is good and shows the German real estate market is in a healthy state. If property prices were just shooting up and up and up, then we would approach bubble territory pretty quickly. But the German real estate market is far away from a bubble. Property prices and rents have been growing so much because we are simply not providing enough living space for the population. And that's why we founded German Real Estate to help property developers fund their projects and build more properties. So if you would like to be part of the solution and earn a nice return for yourself on top of it, then check out our German Real Estate marketplace. Link is in the description.